Hi, my name's Kyle and welcome to Dungeons and Details. So today I'll be reviewing the Half-Elf Ranger from the Dungeons and Dragons Frameworks line. The Frameworks models are produced by WizKids and made from polystyrene, which is a much harder plastic than your average D&D miniature from something like the Icons of the Realm pre-painted miniatures or the Nulzur's unpainted miniatures. I'll get more into the importance of that distinction later, but it's currently listed on Amazon for $25.54. You can typically find the Frameworks models on Amazon on sale. So if you can hold out for a little bit, it might be worth it to just try and watch for a sale. I find they usually go off like $5-6, so it could be very worth it, especially for a miniature like this Half-Elf Ranger one, because you get two miniatures rather than just the one. So here's the box that the miniatures come in. Unfortunately, it came in pretty dinged up in shipping. I have found most times I order these on Amazon, they show up pretty rough. Luckily, nothing inside was damaged. I haven't had any actual miniatures get damaged, but just the boxes. It takes a bit of a beating. You will get one sprue containing both of the miniatures and all of their customizable options. You will also get two clear bases to attach the miniatures to, which you can see in the clip. I immediately drop one of them on the floor. There is also a little instruction booklet. It's really just one piece of paper. It shows the basic options, what you have for assembling the miniature. Obviously, you can do more than what's on there, but these are just kind of the basic options to show you and give you an idea of what you might do for your mini. If you've never put together a miniature before, you will need some tools, cutters, plastic glue, ideally some sandpaper or a file. I do plan on doing a video explaining the basics of assembling a miniature, but that's a video for another day. The sprue was laid out fairly easily, although as usual, the really small bits can be hard to get to. I found specifically on this miniature, the heads were very difficult, especially the bear fur wolf bit. It just, where they had it attached, it was right in between the two ears. So it was just super hard to get the cutters in there and get it just right. Both miniatures come with a tactical rock, as some people call it, to place them on. Personally, I generally prefer not to use these when assembling my miniatures, but some of them you don't really have a choice. For example, one of the two bodies you get in this set, the way the leg is positioned, it forces you to use the rock for it to sit right on the base. Obviously, it's totally up to you if you want to use the rocks or not. I just personally prefer for D&D not using them because I feel like it gives the miniature a little more utility. But for something like Warhammer, it makes more sense to me having an entire army with a themed base. One thing that really bothered me with this miniature was that you're given a cape and a backpack but are forced to use them together. There are ways around this, but it is frustrating to have two fairly important customizable pieces tied together, so you have to use both of them on only one miniature, whereas in this set I don't think they should be tied together. You should be able to use the cape on one of the miniatures and the backpack on the other miniature rather than having to use both on just one. And this is how the two miniatures came out the way that I built them. Personally, out of the two that I built, I would say the second one was my favorite, even though it doesn't have as much of a ranger aesthetic as the first miniature does. I really like the kind of cut purse aesthetic that it's got going, very mercenary vibe, and I love that. Onto the overall score, I'm marking on 5 separate sections: quality, how well it's made; assembly, how hard is it to assemble; paintability, how hard it looks to paint; cool factor, do I think it looks cool; and the price, is it worth buying. I'll be rating each section out of 10 and then adding them all together, so we'll end up with a final score out of 50. So for quality, I'm going with a 7. The fact that it's made out of polystyrene instantly pushes the score up, I'd say about 5 points. It's just so much better for many reasons. It won't bend, unlike the PVC used for the Icons of the Realms or the Nulzur's miniatures. Also, the details are much more defined, which makes it easier to paint. I find often when painting the Nulzur's minis, some details will kind of blend together, so it makes it hard to tell where one thing ends and another begins. Kind of like where maybe a pair of boots would end and the pants begin. It just makes it hard to find that separation. Other than what it's made of, I felt some pieces were a bit lacking in detail. For example, the arrow attached to the bow just looks really flat and bland, but other pieces have much more detail to them. For assembly, I'm going with a 6. At times, assembling this mini was a real pain. I found that the arms were not molded very well to fit into the socket, which made it very difficult to get them in right and glue them in the right place, which really became a compounding issue when I was trying to put on one of the miniatures the arm and the bow with the arm at the same time, where you have to line up the one single arm with the arm attached to the bow with the hand, and it just makes it difficult when they're both sides are not fitting in very well. It's hard to line them up properly, so I ended up having to use a little more glue than I would like just to get it to all fit together. Paintability, I think, is a 6. I won't really know until I actually do go and paint it, but you can get a pretty good idea just looking at the miniature. While the Frameworks models are generally pretty good to paint, I feel like some of the details on this are so fine you either spend forever trying to do it just right, or you'll end up just kind of brushing over it to save yourself the time. Best example on this miniature is all the little studs on the armor. They're just so small and tedious to do. You'd have to go and individually dot with a silver or brass or whatever color you want to go to, and it's just going to take forever, which is fine if you want to do that, but I know a lot of people will probably just brush over it with one color and be done with it. I do also think some of the sculpting could be a little bit more defined, like from the boots to the pants. It's a little blurry on where each one ends, but other than that, I think it shouldn't be too bad. For the cool factor, I like the design of the two minis a lot, and I think it gives you a decent amount to play with both in paint schemes and customizability. Although, like I said earlier, I think the optional bits could have been planned a little bit better to avoid the backpack and cape situation that I explained earlier. I do really like that it gives you more or less 4 different types of rangers that you could build it into depending on what you're going for. There's your more traditional look with just the bow and normal armor, a more nature focused one with the fur pelt hood, or you could even go for kind of like the one I built with more of like a Aragorn in the Fellowship mercenary kind of look. So I'm going to go with an 8 on the cool factor. For the price, I'm going to go with a 10. While the Frameworks are much more expensive than the Icons of the Realms or the Nulzur's Unpainted minis, I think if you enjoy the hobby side of things and the premium quality that you get with the Frameworks, it's definitely worth it. Also, it gets a 10 because you get 2 minis where most other Frameworks you're only getting 1, and they're typically more expensive than this one. That brings us to a final score of 37 out of 50. Overall, I think the Half-Elf Ranger is a very solid offering from the Frameworks line that suffers from poor molding when assembling and details being too fine for the scale while others are not fine enough. I definitely recommend picking this one up, especially for the fact you get 2 whole miniatures out of it. Not many of the Frameworks offer that, so that's a huge bonus to this set. Thanks for watching, and what are your thoughts on the miniature? Was I fair or not? Let me know in the comments. Peace.